I don't know how I want to kind of dive into this tactfully, so I'm just going to ask it straight up. Is Lincoln Riley on the hot seat heading into 2025?
So based on the last 2 years of, final season records, you'd say probably. But when you dissect it a little bit closer and you take everything into consideration, the roster he inherited, the way USC was playing the NIL game, trying to catch up with recruiting, trying to establish those California relationships, to enhance your recruiting, and then all of a sudden, coming off a 7-6 season, you're looking at USC's 2026 recruiting class, and you're going, why do they have the number one recruiting class in the country when they haven't really been doing anything well consistently? They had Lincoln Riley's first year at USC with Caleb Williams. You win 11 games, you win the Heisman Trophy. You're literally a pulled hamstring away from going to the playoffs. But ever since then, things have kind of been trending the opposite direction. And that's why I brought up his last 2 seasons where you're winning games in seven games respectively. That's not going to cut it. That's why preface the question: is he on the hot seat? Normally, yeah, you would be. But when you take everything into consideration and then you look at how they're recruiting right now, it kind of gives him a little bit where the water's a little bit more tepid. You're not
Mhm.
worrying anymore. It's just kind of, hey, get it done this year. You've got the players. You've made all the off-season adjustments. You got the general manager, all those little things that, they said USC was lagging behind in. You feel better about the program going forward.
Well, it's so strange to look at the record last year, and I think it got said so many times that it kind of started as a joke, and eventually it just became kind of like okay, at 5-5, you are what you are now. But like, we're not talking about a team that was getting smacked around last year. I mean, you're in the Michigan game, you're in the Minnesota game, you beat leading Penn State by 2 touchdowns at halftime. You have a epic collapse at the end of the Maryland game. I mean, they were 20 yards away from tying Notre Dame at the end of that game. So, I mean, you're looking at a host of these losses that one play breaks the other way. And, maybe at a certain point, right, we're not saying like, hey, if the breaks go your way, you're going 10-2. But I mean, it's not a team that was that far off. And they took a big step forward defensively, and they were still good offensively despite losing the Heisman Trophy winner from 2023. So I mean, I think when you look, I agree with you there. You look a little bit deeper underneath the hood there. I mean, there still feels like there's a lot to be positive about heading into 2025.
One of Lincoln Riley's favorite things to say last year after each of those losses was, we're really close. This team is a lot closer than you think we are. You know, he's absolutely correct. You brought up those games. If I was to tell you that USC with a Lincoln Riley's the coach, doesn't matter what team, and he has a defense that's only given up 24 points per game. You're probably thinking they're winning 10 out of every 11 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
You brought up they were good offensively. Statistically, yes. There was a lot of empty stats, though. Last year was the first time since I think 2017 where his team didn't average at least 39 points per game. USC only averaged 30 points per game last year. But you brought up those games. They played with Penn State. They had that game won at home. They ended up losing it in overtime. Penn State ends up being a playoff team. You brought up the Notre Dame game. Yes, they're 20 yards away from tying it, and a couple pick six later, they're losing the game by 14 points. You brought up Minnesota. You brought up Michigan. Brought up Maryland. All the common denominators there. You had terrible turnovers. There's never a good time for them. But USC was
Mm-hmm.
in the foot. As good as USC's defense improved last year, they were still razor thin when it came to depth. So all of a sudden now you lose Eric Gentry, you lose Anthony Lucas. You don't have the backups at their caliber. So yeah, they were close, but they weren't close enough, I guess is the best way to put it. It wasn't a horseshoe. And you ended up in 6-6 in the regular season, and you're putting a little cherry on the end, saying, "Hey, well, we beat the SEC to begin the season, and we beat the SEC to end the season." But you're still 7-6 when everything